It's Paul. It's Paul. It's Paul. Fuck it. It's Paul. Listen. There's only so much I can explain. It's Paul. Listen. I just gotta be honest with you. Paul. I just gotta be honest with you. Paul. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this next installment of Paul Pod for Curtain Call 2. It's a limited series, and we are here for a short time interviewing important people in the career of Eminem, especially as it relates to songs and happenings surrounding Curtain Call 2. Today with us, we have a very special guest, a world-famous rapper, friend of Marshall's, as well as myself. Ladies and gentlemen, Royce, the 5'9", is in the building.
Yo.
Royce, how are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic, man. How you doing? First of all, thank you for having me, man. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of something so massive.
So illustrious.
So great. Yes.
Yes.
So shiny. It's so shiny.
It is. It's quite shiny and quite brilliant. And you know, it's hard to imagine doing something like this without you, frankly, for a lot of reasons. But, you know, in particular, there's music on the Greatest Hits compilation that you're a part of. So I guess, you know, mostly we're going to frame this conversation around your relationship with Marshall. So it's not as much a, you know, story of Royce the 5'9" as it is a story of Royce the 5'9" and Eminem, a.k.a. Bad Meets Evil. Okay. So I'm going to go back in time a bit, and I'm sure you've sort of been thinking about this stuff leading up to this, as have I. But I'm going to go back to when Bad did meet Evil. And my recollection of it is that you guys met at a show that you were performing at with your group at the time. And it was at a place called the Palladium. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it was in Sterling Heights off Gratiot, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, Roseville maybe, something nearby
Roseville.
there. Yeah, okay.
Roseville, yeah.
And so you guys were in a group called Black Wall Street.
Just
right?
Wall Street.
Just Wall Street. Okay,
yep.
You were in Wall Street, and you were opening up for Usher.
A young Usher.
A very young Usher Raymond, which is a weird sort of combination to put you guys being this like raw rap group opening up for a smooth R&B guy like Usher, who we all know and love, but a little odd nonetheless. So rather than hear me tell it, tell me what you remember from the meeting and the sort of convergence of Bad Meets Evil on that day.
It was fuzzy. It's fuzzy. I know that it was set up. It was set up by the owner of the club, and that's how we ended up on the stage somehow. I can't remember exactly how that happened, but I know it was through the owner. The owner
of the club booked you guys to open up for Usher.
That's why you got such a weird array of different kinds of artists on the stage that night. That's how you got that weird card. So my son was being born that night. So I almost canceled the show.
Right.
But we signed the contract, so I had to be in and out.
Right.
So I already knew who Marshall was. I didn't know he was going to be there.
Just locally from being in the scene, you knew who he was.
Yeah, because I had Infinite. I owned Infinite, and I owned the Slim Shady EP already. When I say own, I mean I bought the cassette.
Right.
So when I got there, I seen that he was selling his local the Slim Shady EP in a booth. He had a booth set up. I think you were there too, Paul.
I was.
Yeah. So both of you guys were there. I want to say I heard of you too.
Yeah, I was sort of in the background at that point. I was still in law school, and I was, you know, aiming to be a music lawyer at the time, and I had hooked up with Marshall through Proof. And so he asked me to come by because he was going to be selling the tapes, and I think he had even mentioned that you guys were going to be there, and he wanted to check him out, and I just came to sort of see what he was up to and check out the vibe. So continue.
Okay, so I got on the stage, And it's all young girls in the audience. So
yeah, because it's Usher. So
yeah,
duh.
So the first thing I did was take my shirt off.
Oh my God,
that's the first thing I did because
you did. No, you didn't. You did.
I had abdominal muscles by default.
Right, because you were so young that they were just there.
Exactly.
I never had that problem, but go ahead.
So I said a line on stage when I did my acapella. I said, I'm iller than standing in front of a gorilla holding a banana.
Okay.
And at that time, believe it or not, that was ill.
I mean, it's a good sort of metaphor. I like it.
For way back then. It's terrible now, but back then.
We're talking like just for frame of reference, what year are we talking? Is this 97?
97.
Yeah, okay.
97.
That's what I thought. Because the Slim Shady EP was out. It was 97, right.
Bro, so when I got off the stage, all I heard was, yo, did you say standing in front of a gorilla holding a banana? And I was like, yeah. So now it's Marshall that I'm talking to.
Right.
He's like, yo, that was ill. So, we just sat there and just kind of kicked it for a second. And I had to get out of there because I had to hurry up and get to the hospital because my wife was going into labor. So
hold on for a second, because it's important to sort of place some emphasis on this. The chances that you are meeting Marshall for the first time on the same day as your son is being born, that's fucking mind-blowing.
It is.
It's
and
really...
My grandmother passed that day, too. My grandmother passed in a car accident.
Yep.
I met Marshall. My son was being born.
All within 24 hours.
All in the same hospital.
And you wrote about that. What was the song? The song that you went in depth and explained it all?
That was called Tabernacle.
Right. Okay. And that was on Book of Ryan?
That was on Layers.
Layers. Okay.
Layers. The album right before Book of Ryan. Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so we just kicked it. We kicked it for a minute. I hurried up and left and went to the hospital. And then I remember me and him just being on the phone a lot after that.
So you guys,
every day,
you guys exchanged numbers with plans of like talking more about rap.
Yeah, and then doing some music. Young rappers, young artists. Period. When young artists, when we talk to each other, it's always like, yo, we need to get together and work. We need to get together and do something.
Sure.
So it wasn't even 2 weeks until we were in the studio with each other.
Okay. So you guys meet, you do the show. How many songs did you guys perform, do you think? Best guess.
We probably did 15 minutes.
15 minutes. And how many guys were in the group with you at the time? 3 or 4 other guys?
It was 5 of us.
5 total. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely remember being there. I remember seeing you guys. I don't really remember the performance all that much, but that's probably just because of time. And I remember you guys may have been wearing like matching or similar outfits or jackets or something. Is that correct?
I think we had bulletproof vests on.
Okay. Well, that would certainly be a part of a matching ensemble. I remember something along those lines. So you guys met 2 weeks later, you're in the studio after talking to each other a bit. I remember Marshall telling me that he had heard of you and heard that you were an excellent lyricist and told me about you. I don't think that at the time there was a lot of local music circulating from you guys yet.
Yeah, we just getting started.
Right. So you guys go in the studio, and where were you at, and what did you work on?
We were at Nation Studios on Greenfield. My man IV, his studio now is Mix Factory One. Like a lot of kids use his studio now, but back then, a lot of the local hip hoppers, like on the hip hop side, like the Backpackers, used his studio, and it was at Greenfield Plaza.
Right. So it's in Southfield for those that know.
Yeah, it was, Southfield. So I remember him showing up, and we were all in there just excited that he was coming. And when he got there, now mind you, I'm used to being the guy in the studio who out-raps everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Outworks everybody, out-raps everybody. So he comes in, we're rapping to a Dr. Seuss beat, and we're using ADATs.
Sure.
So he came in, he had the hook, his verse, and he had everything kind of organized in his mind in terms of how he wanted to do it. So this is what happens when bad meets evil. So he was like, Royce, I just want you to come in and do the same thing. This is what happens when bad meets evil, but you're going to do your rendition of this same sort of structure.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we did that. that was the first time that people were like pulling me off to the side and going, "Yo, I think he might have got you. I think he might have got you on that one." You know what I'm saying? Like he was just ill. He just showed up real sort of like dark, like, "Yo, what's up? What's up? I'm Eminem. What's up? What's up? I'm Eminem." Came in, shook everybody's hand. He was like quiet. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, he's going into a place, you know, he's going into your world, right?
yeah.
Your studio and your guys are there, which, you know, it takes a certain level of confidence and guts to do that, right? And somebody you don't know very well. So he's entering your world, and, you know, but he comes equipped, right, with a song.
He comes by himself,
right?
With a fully loaded notebook.
You know,
fully loaded notebook.
That takes some balls, right? So he walks up in there, and what was the song though? Was it the original version of the song "Bad Meets Evil"?
It was the original version of the song over a Dr. Seuss beat. So by the time I'm sure you'll tell the story sometime, but by the time we did the version for the album, the beat got totally redone.
Right.
But it was pretty much the same lyrics. There were a couple changes to some of his lines on his verses, but my verses were exactly how you hear them on the album.
Right. So the song "Bad Meets Evil" appears on the Slim Shady LP, and what happened to that demo version? Does anybody have a copy of that?
I think it's on YouTube.
Really?
I think it's on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay.
The original version.
So you guys do the demo version of "Bad Meets Evil." Some time passes. Obviously, a lot happens between the time that you guys record that song and the song appears on the LP, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Marshall gets signed to Dr. Dre into Aftermath. He's out in LA. And when you recorded the new version of "Bad Meets Evil," did you do that from home or did you come out to LA? I think you came out to LA.
Yeah, I went out to LA.
Okay. And so you were with him in the Oakwoods, right?
Yes, I was. Oh, and another component, Paul, before you go too far.
Yep.
On the original of "Bad Meets Evil," at the very beginning, you'll hear him say, "Hi, my name is Slim Shady." Like at the very beginning of it, when he's talking at the beginning.
So this is before he ever even recorded "Hi, my name is."
Yes.
So
this is before he signed with Dre.
Right. So he had that thought in his head already.
Yep.
Interesting. I think I remember that.
Crazy.
Hopefully that's on the demo version that's on YouTube, which for some reason I didn't know about. But anyway, you guys are in LA. You're staying at the Oakwoods, which is like, you know, a sort of real standard base level furnished apartment complex.
Yeah, that's where all of the artists were, though.
Yeah, where all the record companies would put their artists. So
the whole Wu-Tang Clan was out there.
Right. And so you made some connections there while you're out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're recording with Marshall, you're staying with Marshall. The song goes on the album. And obviously we all know what happens, right? Marshall becomes very, very famous, and you are at the same time recording stuff for you, and we are all in the process of sort of growing our careers and our lives, and you end up getting signed first to Tommy Boy, right?
Yeah.
But prior to that, you guys record an independent project as "Bad Meets Evil."
So yeah, before we got to that,
yeah,
I was staying out in New York with my friend Rick, and we were recording and taking meetings with labels.
Right.
And I took a meeting with Herbie Lovebug,
the legendary producer Herbie Lovebug from Salt and Pepper, etc.
Yes. So I was about to do a deal with him, and I remember getting on the phone with Marshall, and he's saying, "Yo, I got a deal with Dr. Dre," and I was like, "Damn, that's crazy. I'm about to sign a deal with Herbie Lovebug."
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "What? You about to do what?" I was like, "I'm about to sign a deal with Herbie Lovebug." He was like, "Listen, man, no disrespect to Herbie Lovebug. He's a legend, but you're not signing a deal with Herbie Love Bug.
So he told you to not do the deal.
Yes, and I ended up mailing my demo out to him on the Maxell tape. So he didn't tell me why. Next thing you know, I'm in Michigan at my mom's house, and I'm sitting in the room, and then my father comes in the room and says, "Ryan, somebody named Dr. Dre is on the phone for you." I turn around like, "What?"
Literally.
I grabbed the phone. Literally. So I grabbed the phone. I'm like, "Hello? Yo, what's up? It's Dre." And I knew it was him.
Yeah.
Like his voice resonated with instantly.
It's hard to imitate that voice, although you just did a really good job of it.
Dog. I was like, "Yo, what's up?" He was like, "Yo, M played your shit for me. I'm feeling your shit. You know, would you be interested in coming out and rocking with us? We working on my album." It's like, would I? And that's how I ended up in Cali that next time. And I think when I went out there and we started working on the Chronic, that's when me and Marshall really got super tight, because he was out there kind of like by himself.
Yeah.
And then it was just me and him. And I think that's really how I ended up being on stage with him and doing the hype man thing with him for a period of time.
Right, because you were there, and
I was there, and he just started getting shows. Yeah, he started getting shows, so we just started doing that. Once we started traveling together, it was like that's when we decided to start making more music together, kind of like as a group.
Right. So he knew your music well, and you knew his music well. So it only naturally follows from that maybe you can help him out. And at the time, it seemed like, because obviously I'm not going to pretend like I wasn't involved in it. I was there, right? So it was the right thing to do. You guys were in the right place together at the right time. So you're in LA, you're working for stuff on Dre's record, and you started writing, as did Marshall, for Dre at the same time, correct?
Yes.
You ended up with a record, I think, on the project, right?
Yeah, The Message with Mary J. Blige.
Right. So you wrote all of Dre's lyrics for The Message, correct?
Yes.
All right. So then you end up going back to New York, and you end up getting a deal with Tommy Boy. And I remember being at the meeting when you signed the deal, right? But wait, before we get to that, let's talk about the independent project. Right. So there was an independent project through a label called Game Recordings, through a guy that we're both friends with, John Schechter, and it was his label. And he had the smart idea of saying, "Hey, you guys did this song on the Slim Shady LP. Why don't we do another single with you guys together? Call it Bad Meets Evil." Right. And I think that was the first time you guys were officially it made that the group name, Bad Meets Evil. Right. Because before it was just the song title. And so you guys did 2 songs on Game, Scary Movies and Nothing to Do. So tell me about what you remember of that process.
I remember it being a cool way that Schechter did the vinyl. He put like beautiful women on the cover, beautiful half-naked women.
Right. That was his thing.
On every single cover.
Yep.
So as a DJ, I remember Preem telling me this, like, "Yo, that vinyl caught my attention, because as a DJ, when I walk into a record store and I see beautiful women on the cover, it catches my eye." He was like, "So that was genius." But that was actually one of the things that I was kind of apprehensive about. Like, man, we got these girls on the cover. I don't know. I don't remember how Marshall felt about it, but I remember being super apprehensive about it. But we went with it.
Right.
And it did really well. You know what I mean? Like it just created a super buzz on the underground. And this is before the internet.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I just remember going to like different radio stations and rapping, going to and doing certain shows, and people just coming up to me like, "Royce, oh, you're Royce. You're Royce." Or, Marshall would be rhyming in the cypher or something. He'd be like, "Yo, y'all got to hear Royce." You know what I mean? And I remember stuff just taking off really fast. You know what I mean? And I remember that vinyl being like a big catalyst to that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was, for an independently distributed record, it was extremely popular. I remember, them selling out of it everywhere, and people just couldn't get enough of it. The song "Scary Movies," produced by Rob Reef Tulo, and he did both of them. Okay, so he did Nothing to Do also. So those were sort of underground classic songs, and this is I think 98. Is that right?
Yeah, 98 at the latest.
Okay, so that propelled everything forward. You grew your buzz and popularity through that record with Marshall. And I want to go back to something you just said because this is important. You said DJ Premier saw the record, heard the record, bought the record, whatever. I'm sure he was at Fat Beats, saw it on the wall or something like that. And is that when he first heard you?
I know when I signed my deal with Tommy Boy and I wanted to work with Premier, like that was like one of the first things that I wanted to do. I think that was the first thing that we went for. Yo, I need a Premier beat.
Right. As everybody needed a Premier beat because why the hell wouldn't you want a Premier beat?
And to work with Premier, like he decides whether he wants to work with you.
Sure.
He doesn't send you a beat pack. You get a beat. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it was like, okay, maybe I'll send him something, but I need to hear. I think he said I need to hear him first.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, oh yeah, okay. So that's the guy from the vinyl with Eminem. Okay, yeah. I like him. And I think he went and listened to the Tony Touch 50 MCs freestyle as well. Right. And then when he did that, it was like, okay, I'm in. We're gonna work. But the vinyl was definitely the connection. You know what I mean? It was definitely like the equalizer. It was like, oh, okay, that's the guy from the vinyl. Okay.
Yeah, he had a reference.
The name.
He had a reference point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
So you do your deal with Tommy Boy. One of the first guys you want to work with is Premier. And we all know what happened from that. You guys did Boom, which is
we did Boom.
A classic record, if you don't mind me saying. So at that time, you go and focus on your career. Marshall's focused on his career. And you had to come off of the road from being his hype man because you had to focus on your stuff, understandably so. So we brought Proof out, obviously. And Marshall started going on the road more, and you were focused on your stuff, and you recorded your debut, and you sort of switched labels, right? From Tommy Boy to Sony.
Columbia, yep.
Yeah, to Columbia. So at some point later on down the road, you reconnect with Marshall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you guys start talking. And at the time, I think you were already in Slaughterhouse. Is that correct?
Yeah, we reconnected once we started talking about doing the deal with Slaughterhouse.
Right.
That's when we started really talking. We had a couple conversations prior to, but they were just like, one of them was a really long conversation where we just kind of caught up. Mm-hmm. And then after that, we went like a long time without speaking again.
Okay.
I think it was just, I think he was still going through like recovery and stuff like that. And I was still trying to kind of figure some things out. So we didn't start really moving into rebuilding the relationship until after we did the deal with Slaughterhouse with you guys.
Right. So you connect with him, I connect with you. Everybody's, sort of rebuilding their relationships, and we do the deal with Slaughterhouse, and you're back around a lot, start hanging out with Marshall just as friends again. And at some point, the idea comes up for doing more Bad Meets Evil music, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What can you remember about that?
So what happened was I started going to the studio, playing him a lot of ideas, like bar exam ideas and stuff like that. And we just really reconnected musically. And then I remember them sitting me down one day. I think Tracy and Marshall sitting me down one day and asking me, would I be interested in just traveling with them, with you guys?
Right.
And I was like, hell yeah. You know what I mean? So I was officially a member of the travel party. So everywhere he went, I pretty much was with him. So we were together all the time. And that's when I think one day we were on the plane and I remember you just walking to the back of the plane and being like, why don't you guys just do everything that you always wanted to do musically in terms of Bad Meets Evil? And I think it was at a time where we were waiting on some other stuff to close, deal stuff to close. Because it took a minute to be able to do the Slaughterhouse deal. It was just a lot of moving parts. There were a lot of things going on. So I remember us just kind of waiting on that to close. And then in the meantime, we were together every day all the time. So it just made perfect sense. So we just kind of went in there and knocked it out. And it started with a song called I'm On Everything that I asked him to be on, that Mr. Porter produced. And when he rapped on that, it was like, we had another idea, then another idea, then another idea. And I think then that's when you finally were like, why don't y'all just, you know what I mean? Like, why don't y'all just make this make sense? Yeah, make this make sense.
I remember it was so the Bad Meets Evil project came out the EP came out in 2011. So this was probably either beginning of 2011 or end of 2010. I remember you guys reconnected musically, and it started happening very quickly. Like, you guys started recording and songs just started pouring out of the studio. And I remember just like, listening to them, and just the level of lyricism that was on these records was just dazzling. And I was floored by your guys' ability to go back and forth like that. And it just seemed like a natural thing to do. And Marshall was in between projects, and like you said, we were waiting for the Slaughterhouse deal to finish up. So yes, I definitely proposed this idea. So we put together this project. Like you said, it came together and started with the Mr. Porter record. And at some point along the way, you guys do a song called Lighters also. Mm-hmm. So Fast Lane and Lighters were the two singles from the project. Lighters was I think I know you brought the track in. Was it originally for your project, or did you bring it in for Bad Meets Evil, or was it just for whatever?
Yeah, it was originally for my project, but when I presented it to Marshall, I was just like, yo, man, if we can get somebody like Bruno Mars, because there was an original reference hook on it.
Right.
And I was like, if we can get somebody like...
Who wrote that? Or was on that?
I can't even remember. It was the guy who did the original beat.
Battle Roy. Yeah. Damn,
I'm glad you remember that. Yeah. Shout out to Battle Roy. So Battle Roy, he did the original. I think he wrote the original reference.
Okay. And he performed it on the demo version too? The producer? Or maybe it was somebody else.
I can't remember who it was singing the reference.
Okay.
I'm almost sure that he brought in a singer to sing the reference. And it was an idea. It was a good idea. So it was my idea to get Bruno. Mm-hmm. And Marshall agreed because we both love him. And when we presented it to you, you were like, all right, well, shit, I'll put you guys in the same room with each other. We'll see what happens. Yep. So we ended up meeting up with those guys out in Cali. I think we were staying at the same hotel or something like that. Bruno got it. He was like, I love the idea. I think it needs to be tweaked a little bit.
Right.
And shit, when you say tweak, boy, did he ever.
Yeah, it was more than a little bit.
Yeah, man. It was like he went in and just put his genius on it. And then I just remember him and Marshall just kind of like doing their tweaks back and forth, sending ideas back and forth. And they just took it. They took the whole song to a whole nother level. You know what I mean? So it was an interesting process to watch, to say the least.
Yeah. And so the production team that Bruno had called the Smeezingtons he was a part of that team, right? It was him and I think one or two other guys, and they definitely enhanced the original Battle Roy record quite a bit. And he got on that record, and it was a hit. It reached number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album, obviously platinum, the EP platinum, I mean, and Fast Lane did very well also and performed well, particularly on East Coast and radio, and was a regional hit, and you guys just enjoyed a lot of success from that project. So, that was, an incredible culmination of a very long process. One thing I think we forgot to talk about is when you were on Sony, you released a song called Rock City, and Marshall was on that record.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. What do you remember about that? Because I remember we shot the video, and I remember the song came out, and I remember all of that stuff. But what's your recollection of what that process was like?
Can I talk about Renegade?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay. So we were going. So a part of the deal, I believe Interscope was only going to clear Marshall for one song, but we went in and
they weren't trying to clear him for anything back then. It was when Jimmy Iovine saying back then was, you keep doing the magic trick, you're going to shake all the magic out of the wand. Quit shaking the wand around every place else. We need it for ourselves. Yeah, that wand only has so much magic. So
yeah, so we did Rock City. Actually, I had Rock City. I remember playing it for Marshall, and I had like a reference on there where I'm going, Rock City, chicka, 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 come on. You know what I'm saying? Like just doing like a reference. And I think me, you, and him were at the Hamptons one time.
Yes, we were
sitting
sitting
in the car.
Hamptons, yeah, and you guys came out one time. I remember that.
bro, we
You had a
sitting in the
show.
car.
I think Marshall had a show out there.
Yeah.
Joe IE had a bag, and Marshall came out to the Hamptons for the bag.
Yeah. So we were sitting in the car, and I just remember you going, "Come on and rock with me."
I wrote it.
Yeah.
I never got credit either. I wrote it.
Oh man,
There's
you sure
proof.
Did. You sure did, bro.
I
You
wasn't
right.
even going to bring it up. I wasn't even going to bring it up.
You sure did, bro. You sure did. I was like, "That's fire." Marshall was like, "What? I'm gonna say that." And he went in there and did it, and that's how the hook came about.
It's incredible. And
Yeah,
that's a true story. We were just sitting in my Suburban and listening to the record. And I don't know what came over me. I got possessed. Because I didn't, it wasn't like I did that all the time. Like it wasn't my thing. But
the inner writer just came out of you.
It just came out of me, man. It just came out of me. So, hey, listen, it's part of history as recorded here on the Paul Pod. So then you did the video, and so that's what he ended up getting cleared for. But how does Renegades figure into it?
Well, we did Renegade. We did Rock City and Renegade. I actually chose Rock City because we felt like it could be more of a single.
Right.
And honestly, Renegade was so similar to things that we've done already. So I think we were just looking for something else.
Right.
Stylistically, me and Marshall, we just approach how we attack the beat the same.
Mm-hmm.
So when we took my vocals off and he sent it to Jay, because I believe Jay asked him to be on the blueprint and he didn't want to. I remember him calling me and saying, "Listen, Hove just called me. Like, I've been running around super busy. I think I wasn't able to do the last thing that he asked me to do. Yo, this is Hove. Like,
yeah,
you cool with me sending him Renegade?" I was like, "What?" Like, thank you for even asking me, because it's not even my decision. It's no longer even my record. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't even have to ask me that.
Right.
So I thought that was real of him just to even ask me that. So he sent it to Hove. And when Hove laid his vocals, it just took on a whole different form. I think he added like a different color to it because he kind of laid back on the beat.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of sat back in the pocket as opposed to attacking it the way that me and Marshall does. And they made it a classic. You know what I mean? So I was happy just to be associated or attached to just the lineage of the record itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember that. Marshall was in a bit of a pickle because, like you said, he was on the road. He didn't have time. Jay was, I think, running out of time to put the project together. When he asked Marshall to be on the project or to produce something for the project, I think was the initial request, Marshall said, of course. And an early version of the advertisements for the album, I don't know if you remember this, but there was like a stack of like CDs or tapes that said the producer names that were working on the record. You remember that? So he put M on there, right, as a part of the list of the people that were producing on the album, and so that sort of locked him in, right? And he hadn't done the record yet, so he was obligated. And you know, when the one thing about Marshall that you know and that I know very well is it's really hard to get him to agree to do something, but when he agrees to do it, he's doing it. Mm-hmm. Period. He does not back out of anything. Right?
No question. Yeah.
So he agreed to do it, and he's like, you know, I can't let the guy down, but I don't have anything, and we've got this record, and I don't know if Royce is going to use it because we got Rock City. So, you know, could I give that record to Jay? And I was like, just talk to Royce about it. I'm sure he'll be cool with it if, you know, but you should ask him. So that's how that came about. So the demo version of that is definitely floating around.
Definitely.
With you and M on it.
Do you remember when me and Marshall were at Studio A and he got the reel to Jay's vocals in the mail to mix it?
Vaguely.
Okay, so something happened with the reel. When we pressed play on the reel, it was playing a little bit slower.
Okay.
But just slightly. So
did he sound like he was off?
He was just a little bit offbeat.
Okay.
So it was so subtle that Marshall couldn't really tell if he meant for it to be like that,
or if it was a mistake,
or if something was wrong. And
right.
he was scared to call Jay and ask him.
So somebody obviously at some point called over and were like, "Hey, about this tape." So they figured that something was off, and they obviously fixed it.
Yeah, I remember him being on the phone with him and Jay being like, "Yo, you probably was like, yo, what's up with homie?" And it was like such a relief, you know what I mean? Because it wasn't so off where it was like unbearable, but it was just a little bit off. And we weren't used to hearing anything Jay-Z that was off.
Yeah, it was all perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just like it was an interesting moment, but it was funny. It was super funny, like the way that it just it all kind of came together. Fixed it. They fixed it real quick, and the shit ended up becoming a classic. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, it is. It's definitely a classic, and a classic story about how it came about. So the EP for Bad Meets Evil comes out. You start going on the road with Marshall. He's doing a bunch of festivals. He's doing a bunch of headline shows. During every set, you'd come out and you'd do a Bad Meets Evil performance. And it would be, somewhere in the middle of the set. I really remember one that stands out in particular was at Lollapalooza. And I think that probably was around, I would say... If the album came out in 2011, it might have been that year, right? If not 2012 at the latest, right? So you guys were going to perform, and you had Bruno come and perform with you because he was headlining Lollapalooza that weekend as well, right? Mm-hmm. So he came out and performed Lighters, and it was just epic. And yeah. I have another anecdotal story to add to that, but what are your sort of best memories of that scenario?
I remember sitting in the trailer with him and I remember him thanking me for bringing the song to the table. And I was like, thank you for getting on the song. You know what I'm saying? Like allowing me to be a part of history like this. It was my first time being on stage with somebody of his magnitude outside of Marshall. You know what I mean? So I remember him being up there with his guitar and him just popping up, like the crowd not expecting it and the spotlight going on him and the crowd going crazy.
Yep.
I remember it being super crazy moment.
Yeah.
Super crazy moment.
It was massive. I mean, one of the biggest weekends of that festival, which is just a huge, 100,000 person in attendance.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many people was that? Like 100,000, huh?
I have pictures from that night at Grant Park in Chicago of the crowd that was there to see you guys, and it is astonishing. I mean, it literally doesn't look real. That's how many people were there. Yeah. It's nuts.
I think the first time that I performed with you guys, I wasn't used to doing, like the big, super huge shows. So for whatever reason, looking out at the crowd and having the mic up to my mouth, it makes me feel like that I need to scream in order to project. I need to project so everybody in the back can hear me. And I remember you coming up to me after the show and being like, you don't have to scream. Like, we can hear you just fine. Like the production is beautiful. That's just rap it like you rapping on the record. We can hear you just fine. And when you scream, like your voice cracks. And I was like, really? Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember just after that, just rapping it like the record, and it was way smoother.
Yeah.
But it was my first time getting used to the in-ears, and you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and you feel like you have to match the energy of the crowd and the music, right? So
exactly. Yeah.
So you're like, your natural instinct is to just, overextend your voice and get louder. But that's the whole purpose of being on a microphone, and it's amplified. And if the engineer's doing their job, they're just going to push it up to match the music anyway. So, yeah, well, that was good advice. I'm glad I gave it. So one of the things I remember from that show also is, you remember Marshall's stunt?
His stunt?
Yeah. So
show with Bruno?
Well, it wasn't with Bruno, but he had this stunt where he had that vest. And
I do remember. I do remember a vest.
So he had a vest that had motorized sort of water spouts that were supposed to come out of it. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what the premise was or how it was set up, but he was supposed to be drinking water, and like a cartoon with, like, Bugs Bunny had bullet holes in him from Elmer Fudd, the water would come out of the holes that he was shot through, right?
I remember that, yeah.
So that's what he wanted to do on stage. So we got this like elaborate vest that was like produced by the special effects company, and we set it up. And again, I don't remember the premise, but I'm sure he'll remind me because he was he didn't love how it went over, but he does the thing. He gets the water and he drinks the water, and the spouts work and they come out. But like, you got to remember, there's 100,000 people there, and a lot of people are pretty far back. And yes, there's LED screens and projections and stuff, but you're still like a little itty bitty speck for people who are far away. So they didn't really see the water gun spouts coming out of the vest through the clothes. So the whole prank just sort of miserably failed.
Was it supposed to go through the shirt?
It did go through the shirt. It worked, but it wasn't visible enough. These are like water streams from a stage. Like things on stage are supposed to be big and loud and very visible and easy to see. This was not. So the stunt didn't really go over, and he had spent all this time and all this money rehearsing it, and afterwards he was like, well, that fucking failed. So that's another thing I remember from that show, and it was funny, and I'm sure someone's going to pull it up online now. But that was the same show. So
I remember a lot of moments of him doing a lot of great shit and being super critical of himself.
Yeah, well,
definitely.
I mean, that's what you great artists are. I mean, you're your own worst critics, and sometimes you guys beat yourselves up for no reason. He definitely is one of those. So after the Bad Meets Evil EP comes out, and you guys go and do some shows together, you're doing Slaughterhouse as well. You're focused on your solo stuff at the same time. You start working on Prime, right? You start working on Prime 2. There's a Slaughterhouse album that you guys record and put out. There's another Slaughterhouse album that you guys record. And then there's a couple more solo projects from you, the 2 Prime records. And other than that, when you guys come together and record songs together, I consider it to be Bad Meets Evil, whether it's billed as that or not, right?
Yeah,
so,
of course.
So there was a song called Vegas from the Shady 15 project you guys did. There's 2 songs on the Southpaw soundtrack as Bad Meets Evil, All I Think About and Raw. And then in 2018, 2 more songs come out. One of them's Caterpillar from the Book of Ryan. And the other one is Not Alike from Kamikaze.
Yeah.
So I remember Caterpillar very well. You guys shot a video and everything. What was your vision for that record?
I remember I wanted him to be on something, because the Book of Ryan is my self-defining album.
Right.
So I wanted that to be the album in my catalog that I'm not supposed to be able to top. So of course I got to have my brother on that one. So Caterpillar just kind of, it just spoke to me in that way. Like, you should put Marshall on this. But I also remember, just in case he didn't have time to do it, I also sent it to Logic. So Logic ended up doing his verse before Marshall. And I remember when I brought it to Marshall for him to listen to it, he was like, Logic's verse is on there already? I was like, yeah. So when I played it for him, I just remember him going, okay, all right. And then when he went home, he didn't tell me he was doing it, and then he ended up killing it. So I think he just has this thing where he just wants to outdo everybody. You know what I mean? And I think that was just like something that kind of like put a battery in his back, lit the fire under him, because Logic killed it too. I still use that version. But it was more of a B version than the A version.
Got you. Okay.
Yeah.
So Marshall went and did it, and Book of Ryan is a very introspective record. And when you say that was the one who was supposed to be your opus, and you don't think that you're supposed to be able to top it, do you still feel that way?
Yeah.
So that's the one.
That's the one.
Okay.
That's the one for me. I mean, because it tells my story. It's the one where you listen to and you feel like you know me after listening to the album.
Right.
After that I did Allegory, which was more of, it was like a whole lot of my thoughts compiled, but it was also a whole lot of things that were being said and the thoughts of many people kind of being placed in front of you for you to kind of pay attention to. It's kind of like putting a mirror in front of the world. Like, okay, this is what we've come to. You know what I mean? So it wasn't as much about me as Book of Ryan was.
Got it.
Listen, I just gotta be honest with you. Paul,
So there was Not Alike from Kamikaze, and Kamikaze obviously was the first of a couple of secret projects that Marshall was working on. What do you remember? Did he come to you and say, "Hey, I've got this project that I'm working on. I'm going to drop a surprise album," or was it not that far developed, or how did that song come about, and where did it start?
It was just another day at the office. He called me and said, "I got this joint. I'm gonna send you. I need you to kill it." And I was like, "All right, cool." I'm kind of already trained to know that anything that we do is a secret. You know what I mean? So I knew it was probably tied to a project. I just didn't know exactly what the project was going to be yet at that time. But I remember thinking to myself, like, why is he working already again? Because he had just put out Revival, you know what I mean? And I'm used to him taking breaks in between albums.
Yeah, taking his time, and the projects usually take a while.
Yeah, so I remember him sending me the beat. I was in here in the studio, and I laid my verse, and I sent it to him. He hit me back like, "Yo, you killed it." And I remember the first time I heard the final version, the beat changing and all of that stuff, and I was just like, this dude he's a fucking mad scientist, bro.
Yeah.
A mad scientist. And I was like, man, that's a body on a whole nother level. You caught a body on a whole nother level. I don't even know if what I said inspired it or if he already had it. Like, I don't even know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing about that project is, he obviously wasn't happy with the way that Revival was received, so he didn't want to leave that taste in people's mouths, right?
Right.
So he said, "I'm immediately going back, and I gotta change course, right? Because this is not the way that things are supposed to be, and I'm not supposed to be feeling this way." So that was the purpose of Kamikaze, and I think it definitely did the trick. So just going back to one thing, because I think that this is important to talk about, is, one of the first headline show that Marshall had in New York City was at a club that at the time doesn't exist anymore, but it was called Tramps. You remember that?
I remember the Tramp show, yes.
So we had some of the recordings and video that we released from that night, and we put on the 25th anniversary of the Eminem show. We included some of the songs and the live recordings on that, and that was an epic show. And it was at the time, you guys as part of the show would freestyle, right? And just do verses over, in popular instrumentals, etc. I remember that was like the sort of precipice of everything going crazy, right? And his first headline show in New York, MTV News came to sort of cover it, which was like, a big deal for us at the time. And you were still doing your hype man duty with Marshall at the live shows. Do you remember thinking of that night as like a big deal, or what sticks out in your memory about it?
The only thing I really remember about that show is somebody from MTV coming into the dressing room, and you introducing him to Marshall, and him saying, "Yo, you're gonna get tired of seeing your video on MTV." You remember that?
He told Marshall that.
He told Marshall that.
Right, and he was talking about My Name Is. Yeah,
and we didn't really know what that meant. We didn't think nothing of it.
But we found out.
We found out. we found it. That's what I really remember. That's what stuck out to me. It was just like, damn, I wonder who that guy was.
Right.
Whoever he was, I think he was kind of like a big deal.
Yeah, I feel like it was either maybe somebody like Ocean McAdams from MTV News, or I don't know if it was Dave Cerolnik, but it was definitely somebody who was in a position to have that sort of knowledge that they were about to go crazy on the programming. And boy, did they. Did
they ever.
So that sort of changed everything. And then
everything in the world.
Yeah.
Everything in the world.
Everything in the world, including our world specifically. And then the other thing with MTV is Spring Break. Right? So we did Spring Break MTV with Eminem a couple times. I think one time was with you and one time was with Proof. Right?
Yeah, I was Cancun. I did Cancun.
Right. So tell me what you remember about that.
That was our first time meeting Busta Rhymes.
First time you guys met Busta was in Cancun.
Yep, I remember it being a big deal to both of us. We just like, man, this is fucking Busta Rhymes. You know what I'm saying? And he showed us so much love. It was just like crazy. And then flying, this is when Marshall was still flying commercial, obviously. We walking through the airport, seeing Busta Rhymes, seeing people stop him to take pictures and all of that. It was just surreal. And we would go to like the after parties at the clubs. He would be in there, him and Spliff Star.
Yep.
Spliff Star was like super cool. I remember us meeting Tyrese out there. It was like, that was like one of the biggest things to us back then, just meeting so many people and us realizing, damn, we're on the other side of the television screen now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
we used to think everybody we seen on TV was rich. You know what I mean? So it was just like, wow, we on TV now. We like around, and we were on MTV round the clock. That MTV, that Cancun performance, that spring break performance.
Yeah,
they played it round the clock.
And that was, I think, shortly after Hi, My Name Is, and you guys were out there, you know, by that spring, right after that show, because that show at Tramps, I believe, was in January, and you guys were out there in spring break by April. Or whenever it was.
It was moving fast, bro.
Oh, yes, it was.
It was moving fast.
It was moving fast, and we had to hang on as tight as we could. Some of us, you know, were able to hang on, and some of us were not.
That's life, man. That's life. It works like that.
Yep. And so that's how we come full circle to today and us being here. And so, you know, Curtain Call 2 is all of the songs that are all of the greatest, most memorable, and most important songs since the release of Encore, right? Because all of those, the first part of Marshall's career, we put out on Curtain Call, The Hits, which was the first volume. So this is the second volume, and it includes all of the most important and hit records from Relapse forward, including the side projects and everything. So that's why you're here today, and that's why we decided to discuss matters with you, because you can provide a perspective that very few can, as can I. And I think between the two of us, we can paint a picture of the way things happened that probably nobody else can.
Yes, sir, man. Come on, man. Thank you for letting me be a part of it, man.
Yeah.
This is like epic shit.
It really is. It really is. And I got to thank you for, you know, being able to remember what you have and sort of fill in some of the holes. And I think that we did a good fucking job.
Hey, yeah, you better than this than I thought you would be, man. Like, just based off of the way that you spoke about it. You know what I mean? Like,
Thank you.
Like, yeah, you know, we'll try, you know, it's difficult to sit and talk to somebody that you're like really close with, and you know what I'm saying? Like,
it is though.
Like,
it is, because here's what you have to realize. So I've known you for 25 years, right? So when I'm talking to you, I gotta ask you questions, not only as if I don't know the answer, right?
Right.
But not only that I don't know the answer, I was there.
Yeah.
So I gotta take myself out of the equation, pretend I wasn't there, and pretend I don't know the answer. So it's weird.
You're really good at keep moving it along, though.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And stand focused on the timeline, because that's where I get scatterbrained.
Yeah, well, that comes from a little bit of preparation and a bunch of experience. You know, we've been doing radio here at SiriusXM with Shade 45 for a long time. So I've had opportunities throughout the years to host various things, and I think that's where that comes from. But, you know, I probably always wanted to be a little bit of a radio star. My friends always tell me I have a face for radio. So there you go. That's an old joke.
There you go.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Paul Pod for Curtain Call 2. Thank you once again to Royce the 5'9" for joining us and helping us sort of tell this story of the journey of Eminem up to this point as it relates to you guys and your relationship. And I got to say, you guys have created some of the most incredible, you know, combination MCing records that I've ever heard. And I can't wait to see what the future has in store.
Thank you, my good brother. It's always an honor and a privilege to talk to you, man. Love and respect, always.
Ladies and gentlemen, Royce the 5'9", Paul Pod.
Yeah.
See you next time.